Lauren Bobert told Fox Nation at CPAC that Canada needs to be liberated. Oh, yeah, dude. Give me some incredible. You know, we got nuclear warfare coming up, you know, on the timeline, and that's terrifying. But how about some good old-fashioned nuclear takes?
So I pray for Ukraine, and I wish them the best. They have a great president right now who's really said clearly, live free or die. He said, I don't need a riot.
Yeah, no, she's like, that's why. He said, live free or die, yeah. Zelensky's really good because he's being real libertarian right now. He's got the Gadsden flag.
I'd give me ammunition. The fight is right here. But we also have neighbors to the north who need freedom and need to be liberated, and we need that right here at home as well.
And neighbors to our south.
Doesn't she realize that, like, America invading Canada would make America the Russia of the equation and Canada the Ukraine? Like, what the f does that mean? America needs some liberating, right? I mean, Canada needs some liberating right now. Chatter really said, lol, just nuke us. This is awesome. I love that. She's right. Canada does need to be liberated, dude.
So, you know, Russia is a Christian nationalist nation. They're actually Orthodox Christian and Russian Orthodox. So, you know, I actually support Putin's right to protect his people and always put his people first, but also protect their Christian values. I identify more with with Putin's Christian values than I do with Joe Biden. So, you know, like there is that, you know, that there is that there, and, you know.
Bro, that's like straight up. Like, I mean, this is like the American Bond. You know what I mean? Not that I hate the fucking like the Putin is Hitler fucking shit, but like it's not actually all that different, you know, than what historically what Americans did when we were like, yeah, let's fucking join the Nazis, you know, let's do the fucking Madison Square Garden, you know, 30,000 Nazis marched on Madison Square Garden, and we're just like, yeah, no, it's sick, like actually pretty tight.
You know, Christian nationalist countries also are a threat to the global.
Also, what about Ukrainians, you fucking idiot? You think they're not Christian? Like, oh, they're nationalists too. She's like, oh, actually, I'm siding with the Ukraine. I'm siding with the Russians on this one. Okay, well, fucking don't worry. Ukrainians are Christian too. Do you not care?
Regime, like the Luciferian regime, it wants to mash everything together. But
the Luciferian regime
he looks out for his people. I watched as he deported, like they literally walked them through the streets, the criminal illegals who were coming into their country. Yeah. They walked them out and they escorted them out and they said, get out. You know, I can respect that. I can respect that. And I can respect the fact that Putin does everything he can to protect his people.
That's awesome. That's brilliant. Stunning analysis.
U.S. southern border matters a lot more than the Ukrainian border.
Oh, yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Give us the fucking hot takes, Charlie. Oh, he doesn't even care about the southern border. Yeah, dude, I know. It's fucking, he totally. He hasn't, like, Joe Biden hasn't fucking killed enough Haitian migrants in his administration. So that's, you know, we got to deal with that, dude. What the fuck, right?
I'm more worried about how the cartels are deliberately trying to infiltrate our country than a dispute 5,000 miles away, cities we can't pronounce, places that most Americans can't find on a map. Now, I'm not defending the actions of dictators halfway across the world. What I'm saying, though, is when your own country is falling apart, I don't want to hear lectures about why we need to send our troops halfway across the world when we are being invaded. The conservative movement must be very clear that we're going to talk about things that matter to our voters, matter to American families. And one of the things that we must be very clear about is how the lockdown,
doing systemic racism. That's what we need to be doing, okay? We need to be talking about, and we also need to be doing systemic racism. Critical race theory, more like critical racism theory. That's what we need in our schools. I love conservatives trying to talk about this from the incredibly narrow framework that they have. Pretty soon you'll be able to get a vaccine with that will prevent war. Then you'll find out it doesn't actually prevent war or stop wars from spreading worldwide, but 2 doses and can make wars less severe. So it may, with the 4th dose, if it were our eyes, you'll be less likely to die. Wait, is she saying she wouldn't take that vaccine? Because if that was the case and like you were less likely to die in war, I would take that vaccine. Like, why would you not take that vaccine? That's so stupid. Even in her analogy, it doesn't make sense. Like, I know that she's trying to say like, well, the vaccines don't actually do anything, but it's like, no, you're still saying they do something, and I would do that. Though it may seem nearly impossible for us to measure just how exactly a vaccine which neither prevents nor stops wars can perpetrate. Wait, wait, we do know exactly how well the vaccine defends people from severe illness. It's called 90%. Well, that number has actually gotten lower, but 90% of the people that are dying from COVID are dying because they're unvaccinated. That's the only number you need. Before the vaccines, 100% of the people that are dying of COVID were unvaccinated because the vaccines did not exist. Then the vaccine came out. Now 90% of the people that are dying are still unvaccinated. Crazy. We just so unhinged. Yeah, my favorite representative, Clay Higgins, came out and said, "You millennial leftists who never lived one day under nuclear threat can now reflect upon your woke sky. You made quite a non-binary fuss to save the world from intercontinental ballistic tweets." None of this makes sense. Absolutely nothing he's saying makes sense here. What the fuck does this have to do with non-binary people? Like, what the fuck? What the absolute fuck is going on? I love both sides of this they them army argument where, like, when you look at fucking Russia invading and like murdering Ukrainians, and then your take is like, this is because one side has homosexuals. You know what I mean? Like, it's so funny and it's so awesome, and I need to see more of it. Okay. Americans have no fucking way to comprehend anything beyond like these idealistic boundaries that they've set. It has to be culture war. Everything has to be culture war. They're so brain broken about the culture war that it's like, yeah, they're doing it because, you know, Russia's the, you know, anti they them army, and the American they them forces are coming in, and that's why they're fighting. And it's fucking hilarious. There was some other shit going on. Oh, CPAC guests blame poor leadership for Ukraine invasion.
Well, unfortunately, this is the result of poor leadership, in my opinion. I don't think this would have happened under the previous administration. Russia has made military maneuvers under 4 of the last 5 presidents. Guess which one they didn't test their boundaries with? It was President Trump. And so now we're having to pick up the pieces on the back end. And so the response is, well, what does the U.S. do? Well, you know, what's going to happen? Well, the response is we shouldn't have let it happen to begin with.
I think if Trump was still in office, we never would have gotten to this point. But unfortunately, we are where we're at. It's tough because my brother is actually in the Marines right now, and I hear that we are deploying troops at the moment, so it makes me nervous. I think that we should have somewhat of a military presence given the circumstances, but not that I agree with it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, we should put some fucking Marines in Kyiv. That's what we should be doing. I don't understand. Why won't we send them goddamn Marines down there? Fucking deal with it. Like, first of all, no disrespect, but all disrespect. You know, we got our shit pushed in like not that long ago by motherfuckers wearing sandals in Afghanistan, okay? For like around 20 years. I don't know if we can handle that smoke right now, okay? Give us some time. You know, it's like once you nut, you have a refractory period, okay? Some dudes can recover fast and go again. Some dudes can't. I don't know what the American military's capabilities are, but give it a fucking refractory period. And 2, you can't just fucking send the Marines to a country when the other country has nukes. You could, however, send the truckers. That's true, which we should. We should do that. Because I did hear that eating crayons in Ukraine. Make America Florida. I love this. This is a 1 minute. This is a 1 minute question, and they asked like 2 people. The U.S. has been nutting for the past 30 years straight. Unreal stamina. You can't argue foreign policy against a guy in a camp backpack. Yeah, I mean, there is one way to fucking end this conflict. Like, immediately. Pronto. Stat. Send Chief Keefe. He will solve it. Trigger warning, Ted Cruz. CPAC 2022, Ted Cruz on Ukraine. Trigger warning, trigger warning. Mentions of Ted Cruz. Trigger warning. You have been issued. You have been warned. You're about to see Ted Jebediah Cruz. Okay, Rafael Edward Cruz.
A big day. You know, overnight we've seen a series of military strikes. NATO. Is NATO ready, Ted, to fight? Should it fight in the Ukraine, or should it wait perhaps to see if Putin pushes further? I'm thinking Poland, Estonia.
Well, obviously, Poland and Estonia, we've got NATO obligations to defend the territorial integrity.
Good take, Nigel. Yeah, no shit we fight in fucking Poland and Estonia. Like, what a take, dog. Yeah, that's kind of the purpose of NATO, you know? Duh. Oh, wow. Do we fight in the Ukraine or when a NATO country is invaded? Yeah, kind of the point of fucking all of this.
Integrity of members of NATO. Ukraine itself is not a member of NATO. But we are seeing war in Europe for the first time at this scale since World War II. Russia invading Ukraine is profoundly dangerous. And when you look at it through the lens of the speech that Vladimir Putin gave just a few days ago, it was a chilling, it was an ominous speech.
Dude, like, that speech was one thing, right? And Vladimir Putin is awful. Gotta qualify it all the time, over and over again. But motherfucker, you're Ted Cruz. Like, you give speeches like that every time you see a Mexican person, despite the fact that you yourself are, I think, what is he, Cuban from Canada? Like, what do you mean? I love when dudes who say the 14 words every time they see a black person walking down the street, turning around and being like, unacceptable nationalism coming from Russia on that day. It's absolutely abysmal. I mean, crazy. How violent are they? Also, we must secure a future for our white children, of course, here in America.
Since the day that Donald Trump became president, Democrats in Washington have told you have a patriotic duty to hate Vladimir Putin. It's not a suggestion, it's a mandate. Anything less than hatred for Putin is treason. Many Americans have obeyed this directive. They now dutifully hate Vladimir Putin. Maybe you're one of them. Hating Putin has become the central purpose of America's foreign policy. It's the main thing that we talk about. Entire cable channels are now devoted to it. Very soon, that hatred of Vladimir Putin could bring the United States into a conflict in Eastern Europe. Before that happens, it might be worth asking yourself, since it is getting pretty serious, what is this really about? Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he threatened?
Bro, this is literally the Viet Cong never called me the N-word, but for people who love saying the N-word, by the way. This is Tucker Carlson's, like, incredibly important method. This is his watershed moment. This is the speech. You guys know what I'm talking about? The Viet Cong never called me the N-word. It was a prominent attitude that, I mean, it was Muhammad Ali, but it was a prominent attitude expressed by black civil rights activists at the time that were also anti-war activists. You know, they were anti-imperialist, anti-war activists, which, by the way, that's actually really funny thinking about that. One of the instances where the New York Times actually criticized MLK at the time was because of his anti-imperialist attitude towards America in Vietnam. So that was... We never talk about that either. But hey, that was the justifiable right thing to do in that moment, okay? We had to go into Vietnam. So, as I was saying, so this is Tucker Carlson's version of that, but for racist people.
Threatened to get me fired for disagreeing with him? Has he shipped every middle-class job in my town to Russia? Did he manufacture a worldwide pandemic that wrecked my business and kept me indoors for 2 years? Is he teaching my children to embrace racial discrimination? Is he making fentanyl? Is he trying to snuff out Christianity? Does he eat dogs? These are fair questions.
Does he eat dogs? What the fuck was he saying?
Try to bring you as straightforward an analysis as we could of the invasion of Ukraine. It was then in progress. It still is. The war at that point was less than 24 hours old, and it seemed disrespectful and wrong to use the deaths of people on the ground as a partisan cudgel. War is horrifying, of course, but it's also a grave and profound thing. You ought to stand back in awe for a moment before you start drawing convenient conclusions from the suffering you see. Death is a mystery. Acknowledge that. That's how we feel. Joe Biden's allies in the media do not feel that way. They use the opportunity to attack their political opponents immediately.
Didn't Tucker literally say who gives a fuck about Ukraine while Ukraine was being invaded?
As they always do. They have no restraint and no shame. We're grateful not to be them. So that was last night. Tonight, it's fair to note the obvious. The invasion of Ukraine is a humiliating defeat for Joe Biden. He's our leader. He staked this country's reputation, billions of dollars, and the full force of the U.S. government on preventing Vladimir Putin from invading Ukraine. Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine anyway. And America is diminished by that. It's not the first time Joe Biden has done something like this. Less than 6 months ago, Biden oversaw an almost indescribably chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. He left American citizens behind. He armed the Taliban with advanced weapons systems on the way out. It could not have been worse. So here you have two historic foreign policy debacles in under a year. Is there a precedent for that?
I love that. He's like, he went from who fucking cares about Ukraine, like fuck him, to like actually Biden didn't do well enough on Ukraine. And you know, that's a huge deal because every American actually cares about Ukraine. Like literally, this is the last week. Not even the last week. He said that like 2 days ago. He was like, nobody cares about Ukraine. Why should we care about some faraway country fighting each other in faraway lands? Why is Biden making it his business? And now he's like, everybody cares about Ukraine. All Americans are very upset with the way Biden has dealt with the Ukrainian situation. Slava Ukraine, I say. That's right. Some people will tell you that's an old Nazi slogan. Well, I'm here to tell you, what's wrong with that? I'm Tucker Carlson.
What's the message of it? Well,
I don't know if it's still used like that, for the record.
Weakness, obviously,
The glory to
Republicans
Ukraine.
often say that, but as usual, don't go far enough. Weakness? Well, North Korea is weak. They literally have famines. People starve to death in North Korea. That's weakness. But they're still a nation we have to contend with because they bite. A venomous spider is weak. You can crush it, but you're still afraid of it because it bites. We do not bite, and that's the problem. We're not simply weak. The United States government under Joe Biden is ridiculous. It's pompous, it's self-involved, it's long-winded and fatuous. It's not so different from the fading old man who leads it. There's no hiding this. The rest of the world sees it clearly. So do many Americans. If watching the invasion of Ukraine this week made you feel a little sick, this is probably why. Of course, you felt sorry for the Ukrainians being killed, but you also sense that this was a genuine disaster for us in America. And you're right, it is. Joe Biden is quickly draining the reservoir of America's credibility and power that has accumulated over centuries of wise decision-making. Like the U.S. Treasury, this is not Joe Biden's capital to spend. He is squandering something that others made. How much is left at this point? You hate even to think about it. Someday we're going to find out.
Yeah, the worst thing about Ukraine isn't like Ukraine is dying, but it's actually America losing its relevancy on the global scale. That's what I'm thinking of. What I'm thinking of when Russia invades Ukraine and it's just fucking constantly bombing, and you got like saboteurs, you have fucking literally shelling all the time, planes flying around, thousands of citizens hiding in fucking metro stations. I'm thinking, what does this say about America's territorial stance? What does this say about our integrity worldwide? We're losing it.
So the problem here isn't complicated. Joe Biden broke the oldest